Baruch Hashem, we're continuing with our discussion of the Levites, chapter 8, verse 23. God spoke to Moshe, and he says, "Those asher Leviim." This is what you should do for the Levites, from 25 years and old and up. They should join service. Tzava means service, by serving in the Ol Moed. Rashi says, this is what's for the Levites. Shanim poslim bahen. So the Levites get disqualified when they get to be too old or too young. But the ena mumin poslim bahen. But the physical defects don't disqualify them. Kohanim get disqualified by physical defects, but not the Levites. When we ben 50 shana and at 50 years of age, the next Rashi says from 25 years age. But Rashi says in a different place, chapter 4, verse 3, it says, Mi ben shloshim shana, from 30 years old they serve. Ha-ketzad. So, Mi ben esrei v'chamesh balomod hilchos avodah. From the age of 25, he comes to study in the temple how to do his job. The Levite studies at the age of 25. V'lomed chamesh shanim. He goes to 5-year service school. Uben shloshim oved, and then at the age of 30, he starts to serve. Mikan Talmud shelo ra siman yafa b'mishnaso b'chamesh shanim b'shuvei neroah. So from here we see that if you spend 5 years and you haven't seen a good sign, you're no longer going to see a good sign. So after 5 years, if you haven't seen a good sign, time to learn something else. Doesn't mean you're going to be the best after 5 years, but you have to see growth. Or else, life is short. Pick a different area of study. The next pasuk says, "Mi ben chamei shim shana yashuv mitzvah avodah." The age of 50 years, he should return from his service. So he serves from 30 to 50, and 25 to 30 he practices. What does he stop at the age of 50? That's what I am. I've been retired. Avodas masa b'kasef. That's where he carries on his shoulder. Avochozerhu and ilas sha'arim. So he stops doing the heavy lifting, but he does do the locking the gates of the temple. He still does that. V'lashir, and he still sings. V'laton agalos, and he still loads the wagons. So what it means by imachoi, with his brothers he serves. V'sheret es achav ba'ol moed, and he serves his brothers in the Ol Moed. He shall serve with his brothers. L'shmor mishmeret v'avodah lo yavod. He continues to be the guard, but he does not serve. Kacha ta'aseh l'Levim v'mishmerasan. This is what you shall do to the Levites in their charge. Rashi says, what does it mean to do the safeguard? V'chanot saviv lo. He camps around the Ol Moed. Hakim will read b'shad mason. He sets it up and brings it down. So his job was to camp around the Ol Moed. Now up to the next section. This portion has so many sections. It's really hard to pick what to study. But this next session is so significant. I feel like we've studied it many times. This is we're going to get into the discussion of the Pesach Sheni. So we start chapter 9, verse 1. God spoke to Moses in the Sinai wilderness, in the second year, let's say some Eretz Mitzrayim, in the second year since they left Egypt, in the first month, saying, Rashi says, okay, so God spoke to Moshe in the second year in the first month. So the first month is Nisan. So we're getting ready for actually the first Pesach. Because the first Pesach, they left on Pesach. So this is the second year as we're getting ready for the first time to observe Pesach. They never observed Pesach they did Pesach. Pesach became. We have a problem because at the beginning of the book of Bemidbar, it says God spoke to Moses in the second month, in the second year. So that's 1 month before this month. So why is this month being recorded 1 month after the first month? Says the Rashi, B'chodesh Harishon, Parsha Shebarosh HaSefer, Lo Nemra Ad Iyar. The passage at the beginning of Book of Bamidbar was only said in the second month. That's the month of the year. The Rashi introduces us to a very important concept here, which is often quoted, and that is Lamadata She'ein stay there mukta mumuchar b'Torah, that the Torah is not written in chronological sequence. Rashi's already said this to us 6 times so far in the Torah. He says it twice in Genesis, 3 times in Exodus, and once in Leviticus. But here is the only time that Rashi begins this discussion by saying Lamadata, meaning to say that this is the source for this idea. So the Torah.
Rabbi, are you counting? Sorry, are you counting Terach's death as also?
So we're counting the times where Rashi says this.
Yeah, I'm saying, but about Rashi does say it about Terach, that Lech Lecha was written while Terach was still alive, even though it said that he died in Haran. I'm just wondering, I don't remember if Rashi says it there or not.
I don't think he says it, no. He says it in chapter 6, verse 3. That's not about Terach, and chapter 35, verse 9. So not about Terach. There he doesn't say it.
Thank you.
So, question is, why is the Torah not written in order? Why is the Torah not written in chronological sequence? Because the purpose of it is not to give us chronology, but to teach us insights. And so there the Torah is going to do it in the most effective manner. Rashi says, Lama lo patach bezu. So why did the Torah not begin with this passage? Meaning to say, why doesn't it start with the first day of the first month? Why does it start with the second month? So Rashi says in Neshu Gnuton Shal Yisrael, because this paragraph is a demerit for the Jewish people. And listen to this line. Sheko Arba'im Shana Shayu Yisrael Bemidbar. All 40 years that the children of Israel were in the wilderness, Lo Ikrivu Ela Pesach Zeh. This was the only Bilvad. This was the only time they brought the Paschal Lamb when they were in Egypt. Rashi to Exodus chapter 12, verse 25 says they weren't obligated to do it. Hello, Eitan. Here's a chumash. You could grab a chumash here. How are you doing, Eitan? How's it going with your holy job in the mornings, taking that man to shul? Is that working out? Okay. Chapter 12, verse 25. Not 12, 25. Chapter 9, verse 1 or 2. So, even though they weren't obligated, the fact that they didn't do it is a discredit. Because if they had not sinned with the spies, they would have gone in immediately. So therefore, Rashi says that the Torah wants to obscure this negative element that they missed out on bringing the Paschal Lamb, so it buries it in the 9th chapter of Bemidbar as opposed to the 1st chapter. And the children of Israel brought the Paschal Lamb in its appointed time. What does that mean? After Shabbos. af betuma. That this is not saying that they brought it, but it's saying they shall bring it. Meaning that if the Paschal lamb comes on Shabbos, like it was this year, the day of bringing the Paschal lamb was Shabbos. So you would bring it even on Shabbos and even in a state of ritual impurity. Normally, we wouldn't bring a personal sacrifice, which is the Paschal lamb, on Shabbos, but the Paschal lamb overrides Shabbos. Verse 3, Ba'abasar Yom B'chodesh Hazeh, on the 14th day of this month, Bein Arbayim, in the afternoon, Tasu Oso B'moado, shall bring the Paschal lamb in its appropriate time, according to all its laws and decrees. Rashi says, what does it mean when it says all of its kechol chukosav? Elu mitzvot shebegufo. These are mitzvahs that apply to the body of the lamb. Meaning to say it has to be a unblemished lamb within its first year. B'chol mishpatav. These are commandments that have to do with the offering itself. That we learn out, like for example, Shtivat Yamim Matzah, or Bir Chametz, 7 days. You have to eat matzah, and Kobe, grab a chumash, my friend. I love that you're here. Grab a chumash. 7 days you eat matzah, and you do not eat leavened bread. Vayidaber Moshe al bnei Israel. Moshe spoke to the children of Israel. La'asos hapasach. He told them to make the Pesach. Rashi says, why does it have to repeat this? Didn't it already says Vayidaber Moshe es moadei Hashem? So it already says that Moshe said the festivals. But Ela kisheshama parshas moadim misinai. When Moshe heard the passage of the festivals at Sinai, Amroam v'chazav yisiron b'shas ma'aseh. He said it to them, and he warned them again at the time when the festivals came. So he said it twice. He said a general commandment, and then when the festival came. We're in chapter 9, verse 5. They made the Paschal lamb Barishon, Barbasar Yom HaChodesh, 14th day, Ben Arbaim, Ben Bar Sinai. So the children of Israel are still at Sinai. They were still at Sinai. We know that because in the middle of Bemidbar is when they leave. In the middle, and then in the next Aliyah they leave. So right now they're still at Sinai. Kenasu b'nei Israel. So Vahi anashim asher yutmeim u'nefesh adam. But there were some people who had come in contact with the dead body. They were unable to bring the Paschal lamb on that day. Right? So why couldn't they bring the Paschal lamb, Kobe? Because they were tamei mate. They had come in contact with the dead. And so they came before Moshe. They came before Moshe and Aaron on that day. Rashi says, when both of them were sitting in the house of study, they came and they asked them. And you can't say that they asked Moshe and then they asked Aaron, because if Moshe wouldn't know, of course they wouldn't ask Aaron. So it has to be that they asked them both together. It came before Moses and Aaron on that day. And this is one of the most powerful verses. These people said to Moses, we have come in contact with the dead. We are tamei. We're ritually impure. Lama nigara. Why should we be diminished? Why should we be left out? Why can't we participate? Why can't we bring the offering in its proper time? They had this tremendous desire to do the mitzvah. Why should we be lacking in our desire to do the mitzvah?
sometimes we feel left out of things. Somebody has a party, somebody gets a great job, somebody has this simcha, and we see the world has not given us that same fortune. There, it's not appropriate to be jealous. But when there's an opportunity to do a mitzvah, then we should feel, even if we're exempt. Sometimes people say, oh, I don't want to wash hamotzi because then I have to bench. Should be the opposite. I should look for bread. That way I can bench. I want to be partaking in more mitzvahs. Lama nigara, they're so sad we're going to miss the mitzvah. If we ever miss a mitzvah, that's what we should be feeling, this feeling of sadness. Lama nigara. Zakta Rashi, Amrlam, Moshe said to them, this is the dialogue. You can't bring it. Ein kochim craven betuma. They said, you're ritually impure, you can't bring it. They said to him, Yizarek hadam aleinu. That's okay. We'll sacrifice the animal and you'll throw the blood for us. With Kohanim who are not Tameh. And we'll give our meat to people who are not Tameh. Amar Moshe said to them, Im du veshma. Moshe said, stand where you are. I'm going to go ask God. Like a teacher, like a student who knows that if he asks his teacher, he will give him an answer. Ashra Yehud Isha. Fortunate is this person who's born. Shekach muftach shekol zman sheyarotzay medaber mashlina. Moshe's next verse was, wait here and I'm going to go hear what God says. So Rashi's saying, don't just throw that verse over your shoulder without paying attention. Imagine that. Moshe had the ability to just go to God and get an answer. And anytime he wanted to, he could speak with the Shlina. But to Parsha I am Marali de Moshe. Why, Rashi is explaining, why was this passage not taught? Why was this passage not taught initially? Like, why did it need to come about through their question? But these people were privileged that it should be said through them. Because the merit comes through somebody who is meritorious. The question is, hey, how are we doing, boys? Bring in the, oh, thank you. Listen, I've been waiting to drink all day. No, this is ink, because we don't know how it happened, but I wrote a Torah back in 2022 for my friend Aaron Orlovsky, and they've been using the Torah for several years, and just this week they found a mistake. You're not supposed to find mistakes, because we actually spent, every time we do a Torah, we probably spend between $8,000 to $10,000 just checking it, going through 3 computer checks and professional checkers. And yet, this time, they found a mistake. So I went over to his house right away and I fixed it. So now the Torah is completely kosher. But I asked the person who I gave it to, how did this happen? He's going to check the records and see how it happened, who was responsible, because it's all on computer. They should be able to check what happened, why they didn't catch this mistake. You had a question, Kobe?
I was going to ask, like, what costs up to $2,000 to $3,000? Like, how much do you pay an individual for it?
Yeah, you're paying because
like hundreds, or you pay them hundreds?
No, between $8,000 to $10,000.
No, I know, but one individual.
No, there's a store, and they have somebody who comes in and checks, and then they have another person who does the computer, and then there's another person who analyzes people flag the mistakes, and then the expert has to look at it. Then somebody else makes the corrections. the end of the day, somebody messed up here. In addition to me, I messed up because I made the mistake, but that's why we pay them, so we don't have what happens on Shabbos, where they were reading the Torah and they missed it. But as things happened, better the Torah should be a mistake in the Torah than.
You have to take it back up to.
No, I did it myself. I can fix mistakes. Actually, I can fix most mistakes in Torah. If it's God's name, then I need to take that up to somebody who's koif the shame, peels it out, or maybe replace the urea. But I don't like to fix mistakes because it's kind of like paying a speeding ticket. Nobody wants to do that, right? So I don't like to fix mistakes. Well,
I have a few of those.
you have no choice, but you have to pay them. Otherwise, it's just going to grow and grow and grow, and they'll be over your head. Pay them right away. So I mean, like the mistakes. But if I make a mistake in more than 2 or 3 words, I'll just leave it for them to do, because it's just not something I enjoy doing, and it'll take them 2 minutes to do. But anyway, so I went and fixed the Torah, and I forgot the ink there, but Itai went back and got it for me. I appreciate you, Itai. Okay, so anyway, how do these people become ritually impure? There are 3 opinions in the Sifri as to how these people became impure. One opinion is that they were impure because they were carrying the coffin of what? You're safe, but you're also right. So the first one is they were carrying the coffin of Yosef, which was to be buried in Israel. The second opinion, Eitan, that these people were Mishael and El Tzafan, who had been responsible to drag out the bodies of Nadav and Avihu. And the third opinion is that they were dealing with a body that was unattended, and this is called a mate mitzvah. And so that's why Rashi says Shemagalgo and Zechus Ayidei Zakai, that they were worthy. Because they were worthy, therefore they had the ability to, therefore they merited that this passage from the Torah is said through them. I want to say, this is such a powerful idea. They could have been sitting there in their rooms crying and being like, we are not participating in Pesach. But instead, because they had such an emotional desire to do it, they merited to have a portion in the Torah taught through them. You know, I went today to pay a shiva visit to, you guys know Nace Minzer, so his grandfather passed away. You know that? So I paid a shiva visit to his father, to Nace's father. Nace's father grew up in Staten Island near me. So Nace's grandfather, this is what he said at the shiva, was a bus driver. He drove the bus for the New York City Metropolitan Transit Authority. They didn't like that he didn't want to work on Shabbos. So as a kinas, as a penalty, they really gave him a hard time, and they put him to be the bus driver in the graveyard shift, it's called, from midnight to 5 a.m. in the South Bronx. When I was growing up, the South Bronx was literally a battlefield. It was a terrible, terribly dangerous neighborhood, terribly dangerous neighborhood. So this man, not only that, obviously money was tight. So how did he get to the bus? He drove he didn't drive his car. What was he going to do it? He took the bus from Staten Island to the ferry, and there he took the subway to the South Bronx. Each way is almost 2 hours. So what a hard commute. It's a terrible, terrible difficulty. But what did he do with his commute? He was commuting, and then they said one week there's nobody to lane. So he said, okay, I'm commuting anyway. So you know what he did with his commute? became a Baal Koreh. And by the time he passed away, he had read every single parasha many times. So he took this hard journey and made it into royalty. He became the Baal Koreh of his congregation. He became the expert. He went from a difficult situation to royalty. Royalty. He became royalty. You had a question, Akiva? Anyway, so that's what I was thinking. There's a man who turned his hard journey into just such an inspiring story. So that's like these people. They were being shut out of the Paschal Lamb, but through their hard journey, they became merited to have an entire portion of the Torah written through them. To give that speech at your graduation. Who gave this speech at the graduation last night?
Rabbi Cuban, our